For the longest time, there's been a war waging in the super saloon category between the BMW M3 and the Mercedes-Benz C63. Now, that whole argument got thrown on its head when Alfa Romeo introduced the Giulia QV, a 2.9-litre twin-turbo V6 fire-breathing monster. A higher top speed, a higher power output, and some said a better car all round. BMW retaliated by giving us a whole string of limited editions and special versions. The latest one to be dropped on us is the M4 CS. Well, I say dropped on us, but it's not here yet. So we're going to take the next best thing, a BMW M4 CS, and see how it stacks up against the Giulia QV. Alright, let's start with a couple of facts about the Alfa Giulia QV. Well, it starts out with a 2.9-litre V6. It's twin turbo, makes 375 kilowatts and 600 newton meters. So it makes more power than the M4 CS, but the same amount of torque. Now, this engine was designed by Ferrari engineers. They won't admit it, but Alfa will gladly tell you that. In essence, what you've got here is a Ferrari California T engine with 2 cylinders cut off. And it's got fantastic response and it sounds absolutely beautiful. You've got 3 driving modes: advanced efficiency, natural, and dynamic. In the QV, you've also got a race mode which disengages ESC and the likes. It's also got active dampers, and active dampers make it quite firm when you put it in those dynamic and race modes, but it responds really, really well. That's another thing that's absolutely great about the QV, is the front end feel. The front end grip is absolutely phenomenal. It's a brilliant feeling car. You're only going to get this type of feedback from the likes of, well, Honda S2000s or Mazda MX-5s, small little lightweight cars. And then there's the gearbox. The gearbox is an absolute dream. It runs an 8-speed ZF gearbox. It's a torque converter gearbox, but you wouldn't say so, because in those racier modes, pulling on the pedals in manual is going to give you a nice firm shove in the back. You end up driving it everywhere in manual just because it's so slick and so intuitive. And these pedals just feel great in the hands as well. Now, they've placed this gearbox at the back, so it's a trans-axle, and that gives it a great weight distribution. Add that to the carbon fiber that they used in the construction and in the prop shaft, and you've got a vehicle that changes direction and feels beautifully balanced. Engine sounds fantastic as well. Now, of course, it's an Alfa, so that means that there's a couple of niggles. And what would an Alfa be without a little bit of soul and emotion? And niggles give it soul and emotion. I know it's cliched, but it has to be said. And that's what makes this car so endearing. Okay, so there's a couple of questions around build quality. The interior plastics, maybe not what they should be, and some of the fit and finish starts showing a few rattles after a little while. And there's also a couple of electronic quirks. So if you've got it on auxiliary power, when you top up the fuel, it won't reset the fuel gauge. It has to be completely off. The brakes, well, the brakes lack a little bit of feel, and that means that you end up, well, coming to a rather grinding halt each and every time because you can't modulate them nicely. Don't get me wrong, they work brilliantly. I would just like a little more feel to it. But I tell you what, it's all these little idiosyncrasies that make it an Alfa Romeo. Okay, then there's the issue around depreciation. You see, the Alfa Romeo Giulia QV is going to cost you just shy of 1.5 million rand, and there's not a lot of trust in the name just yet. They've got a bit of a sketchy history, and that means that, well, come time to resell and you're going to take a bit of a bath. But I'll comfortably live with that depreciation, because this is a cracking drive. Everything from the power delivery and the hair trigger like throttle all the way to the ergonomics and the balance, especially that front end feel. I mean, this car is such a conversation starter, and then it's good looking too. And it's not as commonplace as the BMW, and that in my books weighs in quite heavily, believe it or not. Now the question is, does the M4 CS have what it takes to dethrone the QV? Because as far as I'm concerned, the QV trumps the regular M3 and M4. Heck, it's even going to trump the competition package, and that's a pretty impressive vehicle. Right, and so this is it, the BMW M4 CS. So CS is a lightweight stripped out version, but not as stripped out as the GTS. So while you've got these lightweight door cards, you've still got back seats. You've also got a few little creature comforts, but not all the creature comforts. You also don't have the coilover suspension of the GTS or the water methanol injection. So let's talk about the engine. The engine is the same, 3-litre straight-six twin-turbocharged S55B30 engine that you're going to find in the M4 and the M4 GTS. Well, this one makes 338 kilowatts, less than the Giulia. But it makes 600 Newton meters, which is the same as the Giulia. And they're both going to rocket from 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds, apparently. This one has launch control, though the Giulia doesn't, so it's easier to get this one out of the blocks. This one has a top speed of 280 kilometers an hour, and that's where the Giulia pips it ever so slightly, because that one rests with a top speed of 307 kilometers an hour. The M4 CS is, of course, stripped out, so it's a little noisier in here. And it's compounded by the fact that it's got this sport exhaust on it. Now the M4 sends its power to the rear wheels through a MDCT 7-speed gearbox, but sadly not as nice to use as that 8-speed in the Giulia QV. Both the Alfa Romeo Giulia QV and the M4 CS have adaptive suspensions, but this M4 CS is quite tightly sprung even in its comfort setting. The thing is, this M4 CS feels really robust, really solid, where the QV doesn't feel like that. But that's a little bit down to the feel, because it lacks a little bit of the feedback that QV demonstrates. It feels as if it's heavier, despite there only being a few kilograms between the two. Now, you're not going to get all the Trek luxuries in the CS because it is a little stripped out. But you're still going to get aircon, you're going to get a slimmed down version of iDrive. But it's the power. This thing is absolutely brutish. It is savage. This really is a bit like Hannibal Lecter. If you're not paying attention, it's going to chew your face off. It feels stronger than the QV. This is one of those cars that you really do need to be properly awake for. It almost feels as if it's too much power for the road, in all honesty. Sadly, because of its savage, brutish nature, you always only feel like a passenger. You never really feel like you're in control of it. Now, the M4 CS is a bit of a pricey option. Comes in just shy of 1.9 million rand. But the thing is, it's a BMW, so you know you've got a bit of resale value. You do have to act quick though, because, well, only a handful are coming into South Africa. And we get the sneaky suspicion that it's going to be much the same with the M3 CS. So, if you need the 4-door version, you best get on that waiting list right now. So as much as these are very much alike, I don't think they could be any more different, even if they tried. Now, the BMW is the safe money. It's the wise investment. It's the sure-footed, reliable option. The Alfa Romeo, though, well, that one's the passion option. It's not necessarily the smartest money, but it definitely is the most thrilling. And if I have to sit here and choose one of them to drive home, I think I know which way I'd go.